I can remember when we went on lockdown, the nurses were out there with their gloves and bags and pulling chunks of scalp and hair and ear and cheek and nose because they had literally picked this dude's face off.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Blood on the Razor Wire TV, where we bring it to you real and we bring it to you raw. Once again, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already, hit the notification button. I know there's some issues with that, but hopefully, man, you'll start getting notified every time that we put out a video or every time we go live. Told everybody when we get to 10,000 subscribers, man, we're giving out $1,000, so that's our goal right now. Definitely leave a comment. Comments are important for the channel. They're important for me and important for you, so I know what you want and what you like. Got a guest on today that served nearly 25 years of his life straight in prison. Was in some dangerous places. I mean, this dude's seen some wild things. His name's Daryl. I'm going to let Daryl introduce himself and tell you a little bit about who he is, where he's from, and what his sentence was. Daryl, tell the people a little bit about you, man.
Hey, how's everybody doing? I'm glad you're here listening to my brother Chad, supporting his show. He's a good dude. In order for me to introduce myself properly, I got to tell you, on the inside, I go by Daryl. And if anybody's ever getting out, I'm sure it's confused Chad a little bit as well. With my family and everybody knew me as Al, which is my legal middle name. I don't know why my parents chose to refer to me as my middle name, but gave me the first name that was different. But anyway, there's kind of a dichotomy there where I go by Daryl on the inside or my last name, Allen. I'm a military lifer. I got pinched in '96 for premeditated murder. Started off in the military prison, United States Disciplinary Barracks. Early 2000s, I transferred to USP Leavenworth, where I was there for a couple years until they changed their custody classification from a USP to a medium. At the time, I couldn't be in a medium. I didn't have the points for it, and I was still a lifer. So from there, I went to USP Allenwood, which is central and northeast Pennsylvania, where I was there almost 10 years. And then from there, I ended up in FCI Manchester, and then ended up where I met Chad at FMC Lexington. Like I said, I'm a Marine, so I'm a military inmate. I'm a little different in the sense that I don't know who all, I've caught a lot of Chad shows, but I haven't caught every one of them. Even with Roseanne, you don't find too many military dudes in the system. It's just, it's arbitrary and capricious how they choose to transfer us into the BOP. Because the irony is, while we're there, every one of us wants to go to the BOP. Just funny, because our expectations are so much higher. And just to, Chad, kind of give you a little tangent here, while you're in the BOP, contrasting the two, your quality of living goes up to a degree, but your chances for some type of relief go down, at least with us military guys. So anyway, call me Daryl, call me Allen, Marine, sentence under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, life sentence. Came in, decided early on to just focus on, bettering myself physically, educationally, intellectually. Started doing all the programs that I could do, stayed out of the bullshit. But at the same time, solid dude, not a rat, none of that shit. And I focused on my education and ended up earning 2 college degrees from Ohio University. Graduated my bachelor's cum laude in social psychology and behavioral science. Got accepted in the MBA program, was in the middle of the MBA program, and then a master's of theological studies program. So I was working on a double master's at the same time that I was working Unicor, and made parole. And didn't get to finish both graduate degrees, but I'll take the trade-off. So I just completed my year out, July 29th. I was scheduled to get out in March to a halfway house because of this coronavirus pandemic. My halfway house happened to be in a county jail, so I didn't get to go there. They kept pushing my date off. Finally, the 4th time they pushed it off, I said, hey, check this out. I'm just going to turn your halfway house down. And they're all looking at me like I'm shot out, like, what are you talking about? And I tell them, I said, look, when July 29th comes, coronavirus or no coronavirus, no halfway house, no half, you got to let me go. That's my parole date. And, you know, you guys, who's to say that you send me to quarantine and I got to stay back there for 3 or 4 months? No books, no anything. You know, so like I said, I was still working on a double master's program, so I was still fully involved in my education. And, you know, just because I got parole doesn't mean that was going to stop. So I said, look, no, I'll turn it down. So I turned it down and hung out in Bluegrass Unit. We were kind of like on a quasi lockdown, not really a lockdown. And worked on my courses, read, you know, burpees, watched TV when we could. And then I got out, and I've been out a year. Worked a couple jobs to where got a good job now, and I'm a first-time homeowner, own home, and you know, just trying to you know, the right direction is walking in that direction. You know what I mean?
100%.
One foot in front of the other is my strategy.
Let me ask you a couple questions, Daryl. You were in the Marine Corps. You catch a murder case in the Marines, right? And me and you have talked in depth about this while we were in prison together. I think I'm probably one of the only first people you probably admitted some of this stuff to, right? But
Yeah.
how old were you when you committed that murder, Daryl?
I had just turned 21. Just turned 21.
Just turned 21, right? What was it like, man, to be in the Marine Corps? You get charged with murder, and now you're getting a life sentence, man, at that age. How did that feel when they said, we're sentencing you to life?
Well, part of it was there was in the military system, you know, everything is about a hierarchy, and you follow the chain of command. And, you know, we were, you know, not trying to rat or anything, but we were following orders, you know. And then the second thing is, you know, you trained us to be this. You expect it to be a dimmer switch instead of or an on and off switch. And, you know, we made a bad judgment. It was a bad judgment call on my part. We took justice in our own hands. And I don't know, I felt, you know, on one hand, I felt deep remorse and I felt bad. But on the other, man, I was like, man, life sentence? Like, are you serious? And it's like, you know, 4 of us was charged. And the one guy that had a civilian attorney, he ends up with a second-degree murder charge and a 25-year sentence. Now, don't get me wrong, he ratted. But that's a pretty big distinction. If you charge 4 people, 4 Marines with conspiracy, and one of them is not guilty of conspiracy, that means there was no conspiracy, right? And there was a lot of political ramifications in my case. But kind of deviating from your question, it was heartbreaking to it because I was on my road, the path that I was on, and you know, I could have got hurt, could have had a misfortune, or I'm not talking about what the outcome could have been would have been. I'm talking about what the outcome could have been. And, you know, I was on the road. I was going to probably be either a Marine security guard or Force Recon. And I passed the NDOC. I got selected for Marine Security Guard School, 2 highly prestigious, you know, parts of the Marine Corps. And then this happened, and then there was that part of me that was like, why were you so stupid to get caught up in this? You know, like, man, what is wrong with you? There goes your whole life. I don't know if I answered your question, bro.
Yeah, but, you know, the reason why I ask you that question is because, you know, there's kids out here right now, man, that are committing murder, shooting people, and the channel's geared to saving kids from life imprisonment, premature death, something that we talked about while we were in prison. And I want kids to know what it feels like, man, that are out here, you know, making the wrong decisions. I want them to know how it feels to be in a position where you're about to get a life sentence, where your life is over. This is it. You made a bad choice. This isn't like when you're a kid and you get grounded. This is a choice that forever affects your life. You know, years of your life are forever lost. You'll never get them back. So for a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, however old you were when you got sentenced, I know that there had to be an overwhelming feeling inside like, wow, man, my life is over with.
Yeah, for sure. You know, to carry, to piggyback off of your questions and statements right there, I can remember went to the same church as me and my family. He was my track coach. He was my assistant. He was a football coach, and he was a teacher. And his primary job, he was the girls' high school basketball coach. Fairly successful coach, you know. And we got along great. And I remember my dad telling me at one of my visits, you know, Keith, which I knew as Coach Ellis, says, you know, but one of the worst parts about this is he'll never realize his potential. And, you know, he just broke down crying in front of this is my coach.
Yeah.
And, yeah, those kids and young people that are out there, you got to understand that a split-second decision, nanoseconds, affects lifetimes.
Daryl, you walk into prison, you're going to a U.S. First, you're in a military prison, right? Was there any violence over there in that military prison?
Oh, yeah. Especially at the I would equate it to waves. When I went in, part of it had to do with the unit we were with, and then a part of it had to do with the notoriety of the case. But we got put on, the four of us, we got put on in the SHU and kept down there before they were released to General Pop. And it was funny when we went down to the SHU. One side was called Little Beirut.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people getting put on fires in their cell, and it's just crazy. And then I can remember getting released. The old DB, the United States Disciplinary Barracks, excuse me, that was built in the early 1800s. A lot of people don't realize that held prisoners from the War of 1812. Those prisoners were forced to march to where USP level was. Here's a little historical lesson for you. And they were forced by manual labor to form the first foundations of what's now USP Leavenworth Medium, what used to be the hothouse. So the military prisoners at the DB essentially built a little bit of the first part of USP Leavenworth. But anyway, when I got there, yeah, it was violent. The demarcation between there and the feds there was dudes that were, I guess, gang affiliated or they were tipped up, but it was a little bit more different. At the military prison, when I was there was a lot of fights, and it was more like, you know, I use me and you as an example. If we're talking and our conversation can't solve what the issue is, and we go to a cell and say, you get me, you beat me. But then that's it. It stops there. There's no you having to get me until I'm totally unconscious for fear of me getting you. It was a respect thing. You know, I'd shake you. You know, we might become the best of friends after that.
Yeah.
There was no the layer of politics that we've seen, Chad, in the BOP, especially in the USPs we were at. That didn't exist in the military. It just wasn't like that.
So, Daryl, what you're saying is that the politics were a little different over there. There wasn't where you had to beat someone to death and not be able to stay on the yard with them if you had a beef with them. You guys could handle it like men, and then that was it?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, as you know, and particularly in the pins and the mediums, when it gets to the point where you and another dude are touching hands, whether you're both tipped up or not, you know, depending on how, if the dude's tipped up, there may be an agreement, okay, look, don't put your boots on him. But in a lot of cases, the dude you're putting hands on, you want to make sure he gets carted out off the yard, because you don't want to give that dude the opportunity to get you back. I mean, we've seen it a million times, right? Wow. And in the military prison, it wasn't necessarily like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen the same dudes get into it and throw down. And you know, I'm not trying to say that all the military dudes are tough, but to some degree, most know how to handle themselves. And you know, some of these fights was entertaining. It was fight pass for real. And some of those same dudes would fight each other 3 or 4 times and then hug it out afterwards. So yeah, it was crazy, Chad.
You know, I ended up with a dude that, you know, he wasn't in the military prison when you were there, But later on, he ended up in that military prison. The dude was in there for murder. Turned out later on that he had actually raped and murdered a chick in the military. But we didn't know that at the time. I think he had fake paperwork or whatever. But he had killed that chick, right, in the military. And then he was at that military barracks. He was at a softball game and hit a dude in the head with a baseball bat.
I know exactly who you're talking about. Listen, this kid, I don't know the kid's name offhand. We didn't really run in the same circles. But I was getting ready to, I was there with him for a little bit. Chad, the dude that he killed, but was the dude by the name of Mike Fricky. He was a commander in the Navy, which is the equivalent of a full bird or a colonel in the Marine Corps. And he got pinched for hiring to kill his wife because his wife was cheating on him or something. But anyway, I had transferred from the military prison. He was still there. But he ended up doing like, I want to say 25, 26 years. Bro, he had 17 days to the door. He was umpiring a softball game and called like a strike. And this kid that you're talking about might have thought it was a ball or it shouldn't have been a strike and beat him to death with the bat. They were right there on the softball field, 17 days to the door.
At the military prison, he killed him with a baseball bat.
Yeah. Served 27 years with 17 days to the door.
Damn, man. Let me say that again. It was how many days to the door?
Like 17 days to the door.
People that don't know what 17 days to the door is means this man served 27 years. He was going home in 17 days and lost his life. He was hitting the back of the head with a baseball bat and beat with a bat.
Yeah.
And ended up dead, man. Murdered at a military prison, man. Yeah. That's real, man. I mean, wow, right? What can you, wow. What else is there to say, Daryl?
I mean, can you think back to the feeling that you had at 17 days to the door? Me and you?
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you remember what happened 17 days to the door for me? When I came back from quarantine and the dude stole my radio and all that.
Oh my God. Oh, yeah.
I almost blew it 17 days to the door. Went around, started hitting them kids with the pipe.
If you remember, you came into my cell, and I'm one of the ones, I don't know what everybody tells you, but I know I'm the one that told you, let that go. Go home.
Yeah. I was so angry, man. And like that kid had a baseball bat, I took the steel bar out of the shower, went and whacked them dudes with it and smashed all their shit in their cell. So we talked a little bit about the politics at the military prisons. You know, you were in USPs. You did a lot of time in USPs. What's one of the worst things you ever seen happen in there, Daryl?
I would say it. Oh man, there's been so many of them. One of them was at USP Allenwood. This Indian group was beefing for some reason. I can't remember the reason. But Allenwood sits in the basin of the Susquehanna Valley. So that means in the spring and the fall, there is a blanket of fog that just settles down into the bottom of that valley. Coincidentally, this prison sits there. So, I mean, I've seen fog where it's hard to see your hand in front of your face is how thick it is. So the way they built this prison, they have what's called a rear corridor. So what they can do is they can shut all entry and exit points up to the yard, but open the rear corridor so you can have access to the entire compound. And they would do that for inclement weather. Well, I remember this new kid, and for the life of me, I can't remember his name. He just started out, you know, I took a liking to him. He was like 20 years old. He had like a 54-year sentence or something crazy. And we were walking to breakfast because he woke me up. I didn't want to go to breakfast. And we're walking. We go around this one corner, and it's a blind spot. And listen, these 4 dudes are putting bone crushers in a dude. And at the same, it was weird. It looked like it almost looked like a scene from a D-rated horror flick. While these 4 dudes were stabbing this guy, this one dude is kicking him. And this was right around the time the Scream movies came out. And do you remember the skulls that the dudes used to wear? They were misshapen.
Yeah.
Well, the dude had kicked this guy so many times. I mean, the guy's dead. He's been stabbed by 4 dudes with bone crushers multiple times. He's dead. It's a corpse. But the guy will not stop kicking him. And he kicked his head in the shape of that skull from screaming. Almost like a semi-S shape. It was just gelatin. I've seen that one. I've seen another one where the skinheads, they've been walking a dude to sleep. Is your audience familiar with what walking to sleep means?
Tell them.
Well, walking a dude to sleep means, like you get a guy that's a known rat, or he did something on another yard, and he's got, there's a penalty to be paid. You walk him to sleep, meaning that you take them in with your good graces. You don't let that person know that you know what their skeleton in their closet is. You befriend them. You treat them like they're with you. And this could happen over a period of days, could happen over a period of weeks, could even happen over a period of months. And you get that person to let their guard down to where they're the most vulnerable, where they think that they're safe with you. And then they attack. That's called walking a dude to sleep. So these skinheads had, this one group of people had, guy gets there, he's a known rat, they walk him to sleep over a 9-10 month period. And listen, they put each other's hands on their shoulders, and they would cock their leg back, and they'd go 1, 2, 3, kick. So at the same time, their legs are meeting. Their dominant leg is meeting at the point of a dude's head, and that probably happened over maybe a minute. Close to a minute they did that, maybe 45 seconds. I can remember when we went on lockdown, the nurses were out there with their gloves and bags and pulling chunks of scalp and hair and ear and cheek and nose, because they had literally picked this dude's face off.
Let's talk about, you also talked about manipulating people in prison. You've seen other stuff like, I don't know, I'm sure you're around the yard. I think DWBs walked over there at the time, probably, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure that, and I'm not just saying them in particular, but let me ask you this. You talk about manipulation and stuff like that. What's some of the stuff that you've seen in prison? Have you seen people like manipulate the rich dude and scare them? And I mean, what have you seen?
For sure. This one guy, I don't know his name in particular. I can't remember how he ended up in Applewood. He was a white-collar criminal, but he was worth millions. And, they pulled the generic move. Dude builds up on him, beats him up, puts hands on him, puts a 3 or 4 piece on him. That's not really beating a dude down, And dude gets, shot out of the clink 8-9 months later, and another group pulls up on him and say, hey, you pay us this much. We'll keep that from happening again. And that's, and they bled him. They were pulling 5 G's a month on him. 5 G's.
I wrote about that in my book, man. When people think that guys, white collar criminals, they all go to Lowe's or camps, and not always true. Once in a while they end up in the dungeon, right?
Yeah.
And it's not always good for them.
Not at all.
So I want to get back to your story, though. I want to get back to things that are, important for the audience, for the kids that might be watching, right? So, Daryl, you're in prison. Me and you end up meeting, and you're getting ready to go on. What parole board was that for you? How many parole boards had you been to already at that point?
Let's see. That was in 21, so that was my 7th parole board, and I didn't become eligible for a parole board until my 10th year, and every 2 years after that.
So every time you go to the parole board, you went in there with an impressive resume numerous times. College educated, staying out of the way, not causing too much trouble, changed your life, and they just keep hitting you, man. And sometimes it feels like I'm never getting out of here, doesn't it?
Ironically, the board that I had actually already resigned myself to the fact that I was probably going to do 30 years. And your audience, I don't know if they know, you have what's called old law prisoners, which basically means that anyone who was convicted you'll have some people say 1984, but it's actually 1987 because the Department of Justice or whoever filed, an appeal. So it took from 84 to 87. So actually, if you were convicted prior to 87, you're recognized as an old law prisoner. But for us military guys, what should have happened, they should have wrote a codex of laws for us for when the BOP signed the memorandum of agreement with the military prison, the Department of Defense, to do a different set of parole standards for us. But instead, they just shoved us under the old law prisoner guy. So anyway,
excuse me.
Getting back to your point, you're not guaranteed to get out at your initial parole hearing in the feds. You're just not. If you're serving a life sentence, particularly for murder, they're going to give you a 15-year hit, regardless of how stellar your programming is. And you're going to get to that 25th year, and they're going to say, okay, keep doing what you're doing. We'll see you at 30. That's and I kept hearing, the BOP is a small world, Chad. You and I both know this. You hear what other people are dealing with at different yards, and that's what the feedback that I was getting for a military lifer in the feds. That hey, focused on that 30-year mark. So that being said, there for a minute, all of my eggs was put in the nest of the military clemency, because we still had one of those every year, and they no longer had jurisdiction over parole. The Department of Justice, specifically the U.S. Parole Commission, had jurisdiction over that. But the clemency hearing was powerful for us in that it could give us a sentence reduction to time served. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, at the conclusion of one of my clemency hearings, the president of the hearing, he's a Secret Service, he's a retired Secret Service officer. He carries some heavy credentials. He says, "You've made a very powerful argument for clemency for your brother."
Yeah.
Now, what would you think if you're told that at the conclusion of a board? You're going to be fairly hopeful, and just nothing. And yeah. So,
listen, I was with you. You went through it. I mean, there were times you said 30 years, but I know there were times when you thought you were never getting out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that hurts.
Yeah.
It's devastating. And, you eventually make your parole board, right? You do 25 years almost, you make your parole board. And this is why I say the show's real and it's raw. And I don't want to put you out there, but I'm gonna say it because I want people to realize this. And this is for those that watch movies like Shawshank Redemption. Do you remember when you told me, man, Chad, I'm nervous, I'm scared. I don't know if I want to get out, man. And I said, man, what are you thinking, right? I couldn't understand what you were saying to me at the time. But now that I'm out of prison, there's times where you're like, this shit's hard, man. Real life is hard. We thought it was hard in there. It was a different kind of hard, Daryl, right? I don't know if you agree, but, watching people get murdered in prison, stabbed in prison, the disappointment, the days of, man, where you're thinking, man, I want to get out of this place. I want to be normal. I want to meet a nice girl. I want to get married. And, I want to go to work every day. I just want to be normal. And then after doing so much time, it's like they destroy us a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
100%. 100%.
What's been your biggest struggle since you've been out of prison?
Man, just fighting depression, bro. And it doesn't make sense to me. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. I have every reason in the world, in the universe, to feel grateful. I mean, I get parole in less than 25 years on a life sentence where I did it walking out with my pride still on my chest.
Yeah.
I did it through programming and standing out of the way. I didn't, rat or something like that. And I got great family support. I got community support. A co-owner of a home. I mean, I got a beautiful girl. And just sometimes it's just like, I don't know, man. It's just like, man, you get to thinking about being back on the inside. And it's just like, what is wrong with you? Why are you thinking like that?
You ever feel guilty about the people you left behind that are stuck there, man?
Always. Like one of my, I don't know if this is what you're alluding to, but when I got out within the first couple months, I was able to see some dudes that I hung out with. I moved to a different county, so we're a little bit further away and spaced out. But I got to see some of them, and I'm like, I'm like, hold up. I'm the one that's supposed to be looking like that. I'm the one that just did a quarter of a century behind prison bars, and you look like, what happened?
We also had a good friend in there, a mutual friend, Bubby, and he died recently.
Yeah. Dang.
Oh, Bubby died in prison. He was my right hand man. He died in prison. I came home. I named my dog after him while he was still alive.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is, this man just wanted to get out of prison. He just wanted to be normal. At times, he was a good dude. At times, he was miserable, and he pissed some people off. He pissed me off once in a while. He pissed you off numerous times, probably. But that's how real prison is. He was serving, what, a 20-year sentence. He had 11, 12 years, and he had a couple years left to go. And he finds out that he's got cancer, and they say, hey, you'll be dead within 6 weeks. And he never makes it out. Never makes it out on compassionate release. That's the one thing I felt guilty about. It broke my heart for him to die in prison and not make it out, to die alone. And I want people that are watching this show that are, making bad choices, the one thing you don't want to do is die in prison alone. You might have family members, you might have family support, money, commissary, everything that makes prison a little bit better, but you're still going to die alone if you die in that place. You feel the same, Daryl?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So now you're out, you're living a good life. You ever think about the victim in your case?
Yeah. Yeah.
You ever feel bad that that person's not living life, but you are?
Oh, sure. It was totally unnecessary. The bad thing about it. I mean, at the time, I don't know that. This is retrospect for you. But sure, I hate that. I hate the fact that, we're getting ready to come up on our, 20th anniversary. I hate to refer to it as that, 9/11. I hate the fact that, I couldn't have been there with my brothers and sisters, defending that attack.
Yeah.
It eats me up a lot of times, you know what I mean?
I understand. And I know, you told me numerous times in prison about your remorse. There were times when you were struggling. There was a couple of times where I struggled, where I kept wanting to, man, I don't know what's happening. I don't know if they're going to let me out. I'm just trying to make it day by day. And I know that you had remorse. I know that it hurts your feelings. And that's what I want to bring it back to before we close the show. You made an irrational decision. Although they can say it's conspiracy and premeditated murder, you didn't really think about what you were doing because you didn't think about the consequences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean the consequences in the sense, Daryl, where, you were going to go to prison. I mean in the sense that, killing this person, killing this individual, the consequences of this person's family. That person had a mother and a father and maybe a brother and a sister. You don't think about that stuff. You don't think about, hey, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life if I get caught. You don't think about, hey, these cops, although, people don't like the police or whatever, they got some intelligent people down there that doing real investigations. And pretty much they're probably going to catch you. And, you get ignorant people say, well, murder's one of the hardest things to prove. There's all kinds of people in the penitentiary, at least I've met a bunch of them, and so haven't you, that are in prison for murder. They didn't get away. So I want people to think about that. You're a young man right now. You're in the street. You got a pistol. Think about it. Because I'm telling you, getting life at 21 years old, 22 years old, it's devastating. And you said it, Daryl. You did it. You lived it. You're the example. So before we close the show, I want you to, and you're college educated. You changed your life in prison. Give a message to the kids or to your younger self. What would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self to try to live in the moment, not be too influenced by others. And if you chose to be influenced by others, make sure that that person is coming from a good place. And just try to keep one foot in front of the other. but moving in a positive direction. Maybe cheesy, but that's what you're getting. That's what I would say.
It might sound cheesy, but guess what? It means everything in the world. So I'm going to close the show. Everybody, that's Daryl. He's a good friend of mine in prison. Good guy. Spent 25 years of his life in prison. Missed out on so many things. Don't be Daryl. Don't be Chad. Change your life. Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Until tomorrow, we're out.